Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. Today we are looking back at an outstanding week 7 of the 2024 college football season. We really have been blessed the past couple weeks in terms of college football games. And without further ado, let's look at our predictions. If you have not heard, we are potentially giving away $100 to one of our subscribers. If you want a chance at winning, be sure to follow us on social media. Links to those will be in the description below, but that is only if we do not correctly predict over 75% of the college football games correctly this year. This week's games will be popping up on your screen, and the early Saturday slate caused some trouble for us, but we ended up predicting 40 of the 52 games correctly this week. That brings us to 330 of 434 correct predictions on the year for a winning percentage of 76%. Still just over that 75% threshold, but you still have a great shot at that $100, so be sure to follow us and stay tuned for our updates. Now, let's jump right into our big impact matchups from this past week, starting with the Friday night game, Utah at Arizona State. We thought Arizona State would win this one 20-13, and they won 27-19. And we thought that if Cam Rising played for Utah, it would be a much easier day for the Utes, and he did play, but he had an awful performance throwing 3 picks, which is what led to the Sun Devil W. Your player of the game for this one is going to be the running back, Cam Scatabo. 22 carries, 158 yards, 7.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. And on top of that, 4 receptions for 41 yards. A great day for that rushing attack for the Sun Devils and for Cam Scatabo himself. Next, we have Texas versus Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. We predicted this one would finish Texas winning 40-14, and the final score was Texas 34-3. And we like our prediction here. We think we got the general idea of what this game would be. We knew it was a rivalry game. Usually those are much more interesting, but these teams are just in different stratospheres at the moment. And like we said in our last prediction, Ewers did not need to have a great day because his running back core was able to carry the weight on offense, and the defense was lights out. Didn't let the Sooners get anything going, and that leads us to our player of the game, linebacker Anthony Hill Jr. He had 11 tackles on the day, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. A magnificent performance for the linebacker. Next, let's look back at Penn State at USC. We were pretty confident in Penn State. We had them winning 27-14, and they actually won 33-30 in overtime. This was not what we expected at all. We thought Penn State would be able to control the pace of this game, but USC started off hot, and Penn State had to end up coming back from behind to pull off the overtime win in Los Angeles. USC actually outgained Penn State on the ground, which was very surprising to see, and neither team was particularly efficient in this one. Both teams made mistakes, but the biggest game changer for the Nittany Lions was your player of the game, tight end Tyler Warren. He had an outstanding day. These numbers don't feel real. 17 receptions, 224 yards, and a touchdown. He was essentially the whole Penn State offense in this one. The running backs had great days, but Tyler Warren was the difference maker by far, and Penn State grabs the W in Los Angeles. Next, we have Ole Miss at LSU. We thought Ole Miss would win this one in a tight battle, 35-31. And Ole Miss lost this one in a tight battle, 29-26. This was an amazing game. It was neck and neck most of the way, which is about what we expected. These teams felt like a match made in heaven. If they played 10 times, I'd expect each team to win 5 games. That's how even it was. And for the Rebels, the only thing that really negatively impacted them in this one was penalties. That's what really did them in this game. They had 12 for over 100 yards. They played about as good as you could expect other than that. And for LSU, this was the kind of breakout performance you've been waiting to see from your quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. He started this game off shaky, but he pulled through and had an amazing final few drives to seal the deal. But your player of the game this one is actually going to be the wide receiver for LSU, Kyron Lacey, 5 receptions, 111 yards, and the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Next, let's look at Iowa State at West Virginia. We thought West Virginia would pull this one out, 31-28 at home. but Iowa State ended up doing Iowa State things, and they won 28-16. And we thought we felt the coal rush magic for the Mountaineers in this one. They were red hot coming into this one, but Iowa State is college football's tortoise this year. Slow and steady does indeed win the race, and they played their brand of football, lean on the defense to get you stops, force a couple turnovers, and play efficient, mistake-free football on offense. They executed their game plan perfectly, and that is in no small part to the quarterback, Rocco Becht, who is your player of the game. 18 of 26 through the air, 265 yards, and 1 touchdown. A modest performance, but didn't make mistakes, did exactly what was asked of him, and ended up delivering an Iowa State W. Next, we had Kansas State at Colorado, a late night game. We stayed up real late to watch the end of this one. It was pretty good. We thought Kansas State was gonna win 35-21, but Kansas State only won by 3, 31-28, and we've got to give it to Colorado. They are looking like quite a solid team. They came storming back late in this game, as it seems like they do every week, and nearly won it, but Kansas State proved what we knew they would. They leaned on that rushing attack and played relatively mistake-free football, which is what gave them the edge in this one. And your player of the game will be the Kansas State running back, DJ Giddens. 25 carries, 182 yards, 7.3 yards per carry. Very, very efficient numbers there. And he added 38 additional yards receiving on 2 receptions to put him over 200 all-purpose yards on the game. And for your O&O Sports game of the week, it was Ohio State going to Oregon to take on the Ducks. And this game delivered on all fronts. It was a magnificent one. Both teams were very good. We thought Ohio State was going to win by 3, 31-28, and Oregon actually squeaked out the upset victory at home, 32-31, and this one went about how we expected it to. We honestly didn't think Dillon Gabriel would quite have the day that he ended up having through the air, but Oregon was able to play the trenches, work that stout Ohio State defensive line down, and break off some big runs with Jordan James and Dillon Gabriel. And we said if they were able to keep up with Ohio State in that aspect, then they'd have a fair shot in this one, and they did exactly that. They were more efficient on the ground, on third down, and in terms of penalties, and they were able to pull off the win at home in no small part because of your player of the game, Dillon Gabriel. 23 of 34 through the air, 341 yards and 2 touchdowns, and an additional 4 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And that brings us to your team and player of the week. And you voted on both of these, obviously, but it was a clean sweep for your capital G game of the week winners in the Oregon Ducks. Your team of the week is the Oregon Ducks, and your player of the week is Dillon Gabriel. Oregon was able to generate nearly 500 total yards, 7.6 yards per play, and no turnovers to solidify that W. And like we said, Dillon Gabriel was the key X factor for the Ducks. He played phenomenally, as we thought he would. Keep in mind, that was our preseason Heisman pick. Don't know how close he is there, but we still believe in him. He still obviously had a great day, and he is your Week 7 player of the week. And that, of course, brings us to our Week 8 top 25 power rankings. Starting with the teams that dropped out this week, it was Washington at 24, who lost big to Iowa. Illinois, who drops from 23 out of our top 25 because of that shaky overtime victory against a bad Purdue team. And then Utah dropping all the way from 12 out of our top 25 after the loss to Arizona State. And that brings us to our 25th ranked team, Army. What a year they've been having. They're coming off a huge win over UAB and a 6-0 start to 2024. Army is our 25th best team, and following them, it's Navy at 24. Who would have thought? Navy actually has less wins than Army, but probably the more impressive win of the two in beating Memphis. They'll debut at 24 in our poll, and funnily enough, we made our poll before the AP released their poll, and they also had Army and Navy both in the top 25, but we'd like to say we did it first. Next, we have SMU moving up to 23, and then at 22, we have Oklahoma dropping 7 spots. They just don't look amazing. They've got the tools to win 8 or 9 games this year, but they're clearly just not a playoff contender this year, and they'll hold onto the top 25 by a thread at 22. Next is Arizona State, like we talked about. They jump into our top 25 at 21. Great win. Great day. Kenny Dillingham is the man, and we're pretty low on him coming into the season, but we are not at all upset about him proving us wrong. What a great start to their season. And at 20, we have Kansas State jumping up 2 spots. They had a solid win over a pretty decent Colorado team, and it will be interesting to see if they can continue the momentum they've been building the past few weeks. Next, we have Missouri sitting still at number 19. They destroyed UMass, but it's UMass, and we're still not sold on that offense. We're keeping Missouri at 19 this week. Jumping them at 18, we have Pitt. They had a solid win over Cal, but we now know they're capable of being beat on an off day. For now, we have them at our 18th spot. At 17, we have Boise State, and the Ashton Jeanty show is just a pleasure to watch every week. Their team quite literally runs through him, and they've looked phenomenal. At our next 2 spots, we have Indiana at 16 and Texas A&M at number 15. And then we have BYU at 14. BYU tallies another impressive victory over an Arizona team that isn't awful. The Mormons have moved into our top 15 at number 14, and at 13, we have Ole Miss dropping 5 spots, and they honestly could drop a little bit further, but they suffered a good loss here against LSU. We don't feel comfortable keeping them in our top 12 with those 2 losses, at least for right now, so they'll drop 5 spots to number 13. And jumping them, we have Tennessee. The Volunteers sneak back into our top 12, but we're side-eyeing them a little bit here. Not an amazing win over a pretty average Florida team. For now, they'll move back into our top 12. And jumping both of those teams, we have Notre Dame at 11. An impressive win over Stanford. We had them on upset watch, but they went out and stomped the Cardinal out. So they'll jump both Ole Miss and Tennessee to move up to 11. At 10, we have Alabama staying put. Not a great win over a decent South Carolina team. A lot of question marks there at Alabama, especially after that loss to Vanderbilt, if you forgot about that. So they'll stay put this week. At 9, we have LSU jumping Alabama to move into our top 10. Still got some holes to fix. We're not saying they're elite by any means, but it was a great win over Ole Miss, so we have them in our top 10 at number 9. And at number 8, we have Iowa State moving up a spot. Great win, and they're undefeated still on the year. They're easily the front runners for the Big 12 right now, and they're all the way up to number 8 in the 0-0 poll. At 7, we have Clemson. They had a great win over Wake Forest, but it is Wake Forest. They're one of the worst Power 4 teams this year, maybe worse than Purdue, so we'll keep them seated at 7. Same with Miami at 6, who did not play. And then at 5, we have Penn State. It was a scary day for the Nittany Lions, but they pull off the W to remain undefeated, but they will sit still at 5. At 4, we have Ohio State dropping 3 spots, and well, oh well, we talked a big game about our Ohio State pick, only for Ryan Day to let us down once again. They'll drop to a manageable 4th ranked spot after a close loss to Oregon, who will jump Georgia at 3 after a scary performance against a pretty bad Mississippi State team, to land them at number 2, followed by Texas at number 1, who dismantled Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, and who is your newest number 1 team in the 0-0 poll. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. As always, if you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe, share it with everybody, share it with whoever you'd like. We really appreciate the support, and we will see you in our Week 8 preview.